Hello, listeners. Have you ever wondered why that massive dream you had as a kid quietly faded away? Or why sticking to a simple daily goal feels harder than climbing a mountain?
Yeah, it is a universal human experience. And honestly, it is something that frustrates almost everyone at some point. We all start with these grand, beautiful visions of what our future could be, right?
Mhm.
And yet, somewhere along the line, the sheer gravity of everyday life just seems to pull those visions right out of the sky.
Yeah, exactly. We end up looking back and wondering, where did the time go and why didn't we make the progress we wanted to? And that is exactly what we are going to learn today. We are diving deep into the psychology of protecting your aspirations.
Right. It's so important.
We're going to explore how to take those overwhelming, massive ambitions and systematically deconstruct them into tiny, unbreakable daily habits that actually work. And because this show is designed for people who are actively trying to improve themselves, particularly in their communication, we're going to master some advanced English vocabulary along the way.
Absolutely. Because, the core problem we are facing here is not a lack of ambition. That's a myth. The problem is that we live in an incredibly, relentlessly noisy
Oh,
world.
so noisy.
Right. When people give up on their dreams, it is very rarely because they lack the talent or the intelligence or the potential to achieve them. They give up because they're overwhelmed by distractions, they are crushed by self-doubt, and they are constantly making the very common psychological mistake of chasing far too many things at the exact same time.
Welcome to Everyday English Flow, daily English practice, natural speaking, and effortless listening flow.
In today's deep dive, we are going to equip you with the mental frameworks to navigate all of that noise. And to give you a clear roadmap of where we are heading, we have a few specific numbers to hit.
Love a good roadmap.
Yeah, it helps the brain track things. Throughout our conversation, we will uncover exactly 4 essential principles for turning your dreams into reality. And as we explore those 4 principles, we will organically master 10 crucial C1 level vocabulary words to elevate your English fluency. So just to keep track, 4 principles, 10 words.
4 principles, 10 words. Got it. That gives us a really solid structure for the next hour. And for everyone listening, I want to let you know that there is a special bonus waiting for you at the very end of this deep dive.
It's a really good one, too.
It really is. It is a completely unique mental trick designed to guarantee you never give up on your goals, even on your worst days. So you will definitely want to stick around for that. Okay, let's unpack this. I think before we can achieve anything, before we even talk about habits or routines, we have to properly define what we are actually aiming at.
Yes. Definition is absolutely the first step of execution.
Yeah.
Because if you do not know the exact coordinates of your destination, well, it doesn't matter how fast you are running. You are likely running in the wrong direction entirely.
Right, you're just burning energy for no reason.
Exactly.
Yeah.
We have to start by looking at how the human brain conceptualizes the future.
Which naturally makes me think about childhood dreams. Because, when we are kids, definition isn't really a problem. Our dreams are incredibly vivid and incredibly specific.
Oh, very specific.
You have the classic example of the kid wanting to be a famous football player. In their mind, they can literally see the massive stadium, the blinding floodlights, 100,000 people wearing their jersey and screaming their name.
Right, the whole cinematic experience.
Exactly. But then you look at the reality of their current situation, and they are standing on a small, muddy school field. It's raining, and the only person shouting is their friend yelling that they missed the goal again.
Yeah.
Or, think about the kid who wants to be a world-famous pop star. The dream is this massive stadium tour, pyrotechnics, backup dancers, fans crying in the front row. But the reality is that they are performing to an audience of 2 extremely bored houseplants and maybe a confused cat in their bedroom.
It is a stark contrast, for sure. But what is fascinating here is that those dramatic, highly exaggerated, and let's be honest, somewhat unrealistic childhood dreams actually serve a deeply evolutionary purpose.
Wait, really? An evolutionary purpose?
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah.
They aren't just silly fantasies, they are a survival mechanism for motivation. When a child imagines that massive stadium, their brain releases a surge of dopamine.
Ah, dopamine. The magic chemical.
The magic chemical, exactly. It's a neurotransmitter associated with reward and motivation. That dopamine hit makes life exciting. It provides the initial spark of energy required to actually go out into the muddy field and kick the ball in the first place. It gives us a biological reason to initiate movement.
So you're saying having these wildly oversized dreams is actually biologically necessary to get us off the couch?
Precisely. The brain needs a massive potential reward to justify expending energy. The problem only arises later in life when we become adults. We carry these massive dreams with us, but we completely fail to understand the fundamental structural difference between a dream and a goal.
We just lump them together.
We conflate the two, yes. And that is where the psychological friction begins.
I see people mix those terms up all the time. They say, my goal is to be a millionaire when really that's a dream. How do we draw a hard line between the two?
Well, it is believed by performance experts and cognitive psychologists that we must strictly categorize our ambitions if we want to make them actionable.
Yeah.
So a dream is the what?
The what? Okay.
Right. It is the big overarching wish for your future. It is the destination on the map. For a lot of our listeners, the dream might be speaking English with absolute effortless confidence in a high-pressure business meeting.
A very common dream.
Or it might be starting a successful independent company. Or, quite frankly, it might just be cultivating a life of peace and calm, completely isolated from urban stress. That is the dream. It is large, and it is slightly abstract.
And the goal?
A goal, on the other hand, is the how. It is the small, granular, highly specific daily plan.
Yeah.
If the dream is speaking fluent English, the goal is not learn English.
Right. That's way too vague. Way too vague. The goal is opening your phone's voice recorder, sitting at your kitchen table, and speaking into it for exactly 5 minutes every single day after breakfast to practice your pronunciation.
Okay, I have to push back on this a little bit, or at least play devil's advocate. Because while I totally understand the difference between the what and the how, is it possible that having too big of a dream is actually paralyzing us?
What do you mean?
Well, I feel like sometimes we stare at this massive wish for the future, like complete fluency or a multi-million-dollar business, and we just freeze.
Yeah.
To me, a dream without a goal is like looking at a massive snow-capped mountain peak without packing any climbing gear.
Oh, I like that.
Yeah, like you can stand at the base of the mountain and stare at the summit all day, analyzing the clouds, visualizing the view from the top. But if you don't have your boots, your ropes, and your carabiners, you aren't going anywhere. You're just a spectator to your own ambition. That is a phenomenal analogy, and it perfectly illustrates the neurobiological trap of the modern adult. The paralysis you're describing is a documented phenomenon. It's known as cognitive overload.
Cognitive overload.
Right. When your prefrontal cortex, which is the logical planning part of your brain, when it looks at the massive mountain of your dream, it subconsciously calculates the sheer amount of energy, time, and resources required to jump from the bottom to the top in a single bound.
And obviously, it realizes you can't just jump to the top of a mountain.
Exactly. The brain instantly recognizes that the leap is impossible. And because the brain is inherently designed to conserve energy and protect you from failure, it triggers a subtle stress response. The amygdala gets involved, it registers the massive dream as a literal threat to your current stability, and it essentially pulls the emergency brake.
Wow, so our brain is trying to protect us from our own dreams.
Basically, yes. This is why having a massive dream without a goal often leads directly to procrastination, anxiety, or just complete apathy.
So the goal, the climbing gear in our analogy, is what bypasses that stress response.
Yes. The goal shrinks the mountain down to something the brain can actually process. It just looks at the very next step. The brain doesn't have to calculate how to climb the whole mountain. It only has to calculate how to put on the boots. And that requires very little energy.
I want to pause here and highlight something because the way you just described moving toward that mountain brings us perfectly to our language learning focus. We promised to cover 10 C1 level vocabulary words today, and the first word on our list is entirely about this concept of active movement.
Okay, what is it?
Well, you didn't say we should just wait for the mountain to come to us. You implied we have to go after it. That brings up the word chase. C-H-A-S-E. It's a verb.
Yes. It is a highly relevant word for this context. When we use chase regarding goals, such as in the phrase chasing a dream, we are communicating something very deliberate. We aren't talking about casually following something.
Right, it's not a stroll.
Not at all. Chase implies active, continuous, and often strenuous movement. It means you are the initiator. You do not wait passively for a dream to arrive on your doorstep. You exert energy to hunt it down.
Right, it has a real sense of urgency to it. Like, if you are chasing a bus, you are running, you are sweating, you're determined not to miss it. How would this look in a more professional or advanced conversational setting?
Let's consider a hypothetical scenario in a corporate environment. Imagine a colleague discussing someone's career trajectory. They might say, despite facing numerous financial setbacks, she continued to relentlessly chase her dream of opening an independent bookstore.
That works so well because relentlessly modifies chase to show that the movement didn't stop even when it got difficult. It paints a picture of someone refusing to give up the pursuit.
Precisely. It is about agency. For another example, think about personal values. Someone might say, he realized that chasing wealth without a clear purpose left him feeling completely empty, so he began to chase experiences that brought him genuine psychological joy.
Oh, that's a good one.
Yeah, in both sentences, the subject is entirely in control of their forward momentum.
That flips the script on how a lot of people view success. It puts you firmly in the driver's seat, which actually leads right into our second C1 vocabulary word for this section. If chase is the forward movement, you need to know where you are moving. The word is direction. D-I-R-E-C-T-I-O-N, a noun.
We use direction in terms of aspirations to explain how a dream acts as a guiding force. This is a crucial distinction. A direction is not necessarily a final destination that you reach and then cross off a to-do list.
Okay, so it's not an endpoint.
No, it is a vector. It is a line pointing out into the horizon, orienting you toward the type of life you want to build.
Like a compass, which we are going to explore much deeper later on. So how would we construct a C1 level sentence using direction in this philosophical way?
You might describe a turning point in someone's life by saying, deciding to study abroad gave her life a completely new direction, opening up lucrative career paths she had never previously considered. Or, in a more introspective context, when you feel utterly lost in your career, your core personal values can provide the necessary direction to make those difficult, high-stakes choices.
So to summarize the psychology here, the dream provides the direction, the overarching vector, and the goal is the actual physical act of chasing it step by step using your climbing gear. I think that framework alone can clear up so much confusion.
It really does.
So I want to ask you, the listener, a direct question right now. I want you to picture this in your mind. What is one big dream you have? Just hold the image of it for a second. And now, more importantly, what is one little goal, one specific piece of climbing gear that could move you closer to it today? Not next week, not tomorrow morning, today. Just hold that thought as we move forward.
It is a critical question to anchor yourself to, because even once we perfectly define the dream and establish the goal, we almost immediately run into the next major psychological hurdle.
Right. We know the difference. We have our climbing gear packed, and we know what chase means, so why do we still fail? Why do the hiking boots stay sitting in the closet for 6 months?
Because the human brain, in its endless ambition, decides that it doesn't want to just climb one mountain. It tries to climb 10 mountains at the exact same time.
Oh, man. The classic 10 dreams at once syndrome. I know this one intimately, and I think everyone listening does too.
We all do.
This is that very specific phenomenon where you wake up on a random Monday morning, usually after a relaxing weekend, and you get this massive, unearned burst of motivation.
Unearned is the perfect word for it.
Right. You look in the mirror and you decide that starting today, you are going to learn fluent English, you're going to lose 20 pounds, you are going to save 50% of your income, you're going to finally write that novel, and you are going to learn how to cook like a master French chef. And you plan to have all of this perfectly integrated into your routine by Friday afternoon.
It sounds completely comical when you list it out like that, but the human brain frequently attempts this exact level of catastrophic overcommitment. And there is a very specific neurochemical reason why we do this to ourselves.
I would love to know the science behind why I keep torturing myself with these Monday morning master plans.
It comes back to dopamine again. We get a significant hit of dopamine simply from the act of planning to do all these wonderful things.
Wait, just from planning?
Yes. When you write down, learn French, lose weight, write a book in a fresh new notebook, your brain actually visualizes the successful end state of all those goals. The brain rewards you chemically for the fantasy of achievement before you've done a single minute of actual work. You feel productive just by making the list.
Wow, so planning feels exactly like achieving to the primitive part of the brain.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But execution, the actual act of doing the work, is governed by a completely different neurological process. Execution requires the prefrontal cortex, which consumes a massive amount of glucose and energy. Your daily willpower and your cognitive energy reserves are strictly finite. They're not a bottomless well.
Right, there's only so much gas in the tank.
Exactly. So when you attempt to spread that finite energy across 10 massive, life-altering dreams simultaneously, you drain the battery completely by Tuesday morning. You ensure failure in all of them because you have mathematically guaranteed that none of them receive the critical mass of energy required to create a new neural pathway.
We are right at the 10-minute mark of our deep dive today. And before we solve this 10 dreams at once syndrome and figure out how to manage that finite energy, I want to quickly remind you, our listener, to like, share, and subscribe to this deep dive wherever you happen to be listening. Hitting that subscribe button helps us keep bringing you these deep psychological insights. And frankly, it tells the algorithms that you are someone who values high-quality, thought-provoking content rather than just endless short-form scrolling. So take a quick second to do that, and let's get back to the mountains. If we have finite energy, how do we stop trying to climb all 10 peaks at once?
Well, we have to adopt a framework of strict prioritization. Specifically, we utilize a concept known as the season. It is highly recommended by behavioral psychologists to choose just one main dream for a specific season of your life.
Yeah.
And when we use the word season in this context, we are not talking about meteorological spring or summer.
So not just waiting for June.
No, we're talking about a defined psychological season of roughly 3 to 6 months.
Okay, let's unpack this. 3 to 6 months. That seems very specific.
Right.
Why not a 1-month sprint or a 5-year master plan? What is the magic of the 3 to 6 month window?
It is the optimal window for human focus and adaptation. 3 to 6 months is long enough to see tangible, undeniable progress. If you practice a language for 4 months, you will definitively notice an improvement in your vocabulary and listening comprehension.
That feels good.
It does. That visible progress acts as a secondary dopamine hit, which fuels further motivation. However, the time frame is also short enough that the finish line of the season remains visible to the brain.
Ah, I see.
If you set a 5-year goal, the brain categorizes it as too far away to care about right now, which breeds procrastination. A 3 to 6 month season prevents burnout while maximizing neuroplasticity.
I love that. But I think the fear people have, and I certainly have this fear, is that if I choose to only focus on my English fluency for the next 4 months, I am essentially giving up on my dream of writing a novel or starting a business. It feels like a betrayal of my other ambitions.
That is a common cognitive distortion. Choosing one dream for a season does not mean your other dreams are dead. They are not discarded into the trash bin of your life.
Right. They are just taking a back seat. They are along for the ride. They are perfectly safe. They're still part of the journey, but they absolutely do not get to hold the steering wheel right now. The main dream you chose for this season is the sole driver for the next 3 to 6 months.
Precisely. It is about sequential focus rather than simultaneous focus. And once you have established your driver, your main dream for the season, you must implement the mechanism of action. You must establish what experts call the daily anchor.
The daily anchor. The name itself sounds incredibly solid, heavy, unmovable.
It absolutely has to be unmovable. The daily anchor is the antidote to the cognitive overload we discussed earlier. It is the process of choosing a clear, highly specific, and very small block of time to do just 10 to 15 minutes of focused work on your primary goal. The critical element here is not the duration of the work, it is the specificity of the timing. You cannot wake up and say, I will practice my English for 15 minutes sometime today.
Because sometime means never. I can testify to this under oath. If I look at the kitchen and say, I'll do those dishes sometime today, those dishes are 100% sitting in the sink until tomorrow morning when I need a clean coffee mug.
And there's a neurological reason for your dirty dishes. Sometime is an abstract concept. The basal ganglia, which is the part of the brain responsible for habit formation, cannot schedule an action against an abstract concept. It needs a trigger.
So it needs something concrete to attach to.
Exactly. Therefore, the daily anchor must be firmly attached to a pre-existing, non-negotiable routine. This is often called habit stacking.
So you bolt the new habit onto something you were already doing automatically.
Exactly. You say, I will practice speaking English for exactly 10 minutes immediately after I pour my morning cup of coffee. Or, I will spend 15 minutes drafting my business plan right after I brush my teeth at night. The coffee and the toothbrushing act as the environmental triggers. They signal to the brain that it's time to execute the anchor.
Let's walk through a hypothetical example to really cement this for the listener. Imagine someone whose overarching dream is to build and sell a comprehensive online English course. The dream is massive. It involves recording videos, writing curriculum, building a website, marketing. If they look at the whole mountain, they will freeze. So their daily anchor is sitting down for just 15 minutes a day of real, actual work on it.
Right.
One day, that 15 minutes is spent just writing one module outline. The next day, it's drafting one welcome email. The next day, it's recording one short audio clip. It seems absurdly small when compared to the final product, but doing that 15 minutes every single day allows you to look at your massive dream, look at your own ambition, and honestly say to yourself, I'm coming slowly, but I'm coming.
I'm coming slowly, but I'm coming. But that is an incredibly profound psychological stance to take. It radically alters your relationship with time. It completely removes the panic of the looming deadline and replaces it with the quiet inevitability of momentum.
This concept of choosing one thing and sticking to it brings us to our next set of C1 vocabulary words, which are absolutely essential for understanding the mechanics of this section. The third word on our list is priority. Priority, a noun. And there's a fascinating history behind this word, isn't there?
There is. The etymology of priority perfectly highlights the modern psychological dilemma we are discussing. The word entered the English language in the 14th century, derived from the Latin prior, meaning first.
Okay.
For roughly 500 years, it was strictly a singular concept. You could only have one priority. It meant the very first thing. The very idea of pluralizing it into priorities is a relatively modern invention, mostly emerging during the Industrial Revolution, that directly contributes to our current culture of burnout.
That blows my mind. The fact that grammatically, historically, you could only have one priority proves the exact point about the 10 dreams at once syndrome. We've culturally normalized the impossible. So if we want to use priority correctly in its true sense, how do we frame it in a C1 level sentence?
To use it correctly implies a hierarchy. Priority means the single thing that receives your time, your energy, and your attention first, before anything else is allowed to interrupt. For example, in a high-stakes corporate negotiation, one might say, given the fast-approaching project deadline, securing the client's final approval must remain our top priority this week.
Meaning everything else goes in the back seat. And applying it to language learning.
You could say. She realized that in order to achieve true fluency, daily English immersion had to take priority over her comfortable evening television habits. Notice how in both examples, the priority actively displaces something else. It forces a sacrifice. You cannot prioritize everything.
Right. If everything is a priority, nothing is. And our fourth C1 word is the engine that actually makes the priority yield results over a 3 to 6 month season. The word is consistent. Consistent, an adjective.
Consistent describes a pattern of behavior that is performed in the same way over a period of time without wild fluctuations. When we apply this to the psychology of goal achievement, it represents the fundamental biological truth that consistency always beats intensity.
This is a huge point. Why does the brain prefer 10 minutes a day over a 5-hour marathon session once a month?
It comes down to a process called myelination. When you practice a skill like speaking English or coding, your brain fires electrical signals through specific neural pathways. When you fire those pathways consistently every single day, the brain coats those neurons in a fatty substance called myelin.
Myelin, okay.
Yes. And myelin makes this signal travel faster and more efficiently. Studying for 10 minutes every single day for a year builds thick, permanent myelin sheaths. Cramming for 5 hours once a month simply does not provide the repeated, rhythmic exposure the brain requires to justify building that infrastructure.
So consistency is literally physically changing the structure of your brain. Let's look at how to use consistent in a complex sentence. I'll give one. The athlete's consistent training regimen, maintained regardless of the freezing weather or her own fluctuating mood, was the undisputed key to her Olympic success.
A perfect example. It highlights that consistency happens despite external conditions. A second example, perhaps in a business context. In order to build long-term trust with your global audience, it is absolutely imperative to deliver a consistent message across all of your communication channels.
If we connect this to the bigger picture, these tiny daily anchors performed consistently over a dedicated season where that specific dream is your sole priority are the actual unglamorous building blocks of lifelong success.
Unglamorous is the perfect word.
Right. It isn't magic. It isn't a secret formula. It's architecture. You are building the house one brick at a time every single day.
That is a perfect transition into the harsh realities of the modern world. Because it's one thing to sit here and neatly outline a daily anchor, to intellectually prioritize your dream, and to understand the neuroscience of consistency. It is quite another thing entirely to actually sit down at your kitchen table at 7 p.m. and do the work.
Oh, yes. The theory is beautiful. The practice is a battlefield. Because we all know what actually happens. You've set your daily anchor. You say to yourself, right after dinner, I am doing my 15 minutes of intensive English listening practice. Dinner finishes. You are feeling good.
You're ready to go.
You sit down at the table, you open your notebook, you grab your pen, you feel highly motivated, and then your phone vibrates against the wood of the table, and then your smartwatch lights up with a calendar alert, and then your tablet across the room pings with an email. The world has aggressively entered the chat. How on earth do we protect these fragile 15-minute goals in a world that is so aggressively, intentionally noisy?
To survive in this environment, we have to recognize that we are under siege, and we have to actively battle what behavioral psychologists often refer to as dream thieves.
Dream thieves. I love that term. It sounds like a villain in a fantasy novel creeping in through the window to steal your magic, but in reality, it is terrifyingly mundane and real.
Very real and very well funded. Dream thieves are the ubiquitous, carefully engineered distractions designed by multi-billion-dollar companies to harvest your attention.
Notifications are the most obvious ones, of course, the buzzes, the rings, the red badges on apps. But I think there are stealthier dream thieves, too. There's the incredibly comfortable, oversized sofa in the corner of the living room that just seems to call your name when you're tired. There's the endless, frictionless scrolling on social media feeds. And then there's the internet whispering that most dangerous, subtle lie of all. Just 5 minutes. Just check your feed for 5 minutes before you study.
The just 5 minutes lie is perhaps the most insidious dream thief of all because it bypasses our logical defenses. The algorithms powering our social media feeds and video platforms are not random. They are literally designed by behavioral psychologists using a mechanism called a variable ratio schedule of reinforcement.
Variable ratio schedule. What does that mean?
It's the exact same psychology used in casino slot machines. You pull the lever or swipe down to refresh, and you never know if you're going to get something boring or a highly entertaining video that gives you a spike of dopamine. Because the reward is unpredictable, your brain becomes addicted to the checking behavior itself.
So when the phone says just 5 minutes, it is a biological trap.
Precisely. They are engineered to ensure that 5 minutes seamlessly dissolves into 45 minutes of mindless passive consumption. And the tragedy is not just that you lose 45 minutes of time. You lose your cognitive momentum. The energy required to pull yourself out of that algorithmic trance and refocus on a difficult task like language learning is immense. Often, you simply don't have the willpower left to do it.
So what is the defense mechanism? If we are up against supercomputers and behavioral psychologists trying to steal our attention, how do we build a fortress around our tiny 15-minute daily anchor?
We have to manipulate our physical environment to work for us rather than against us. The most effective strategy is creating a dedicated focus corner and ruthlessly protecting that small block of time.
When you say focus corner, do you mean we need to build a soundproof home office? Because not everyone has the space or money for that.
Not at all. It does not need to be an entire room. It can literally just be one specific chair in the living room or a dedicated corner of the kitchen table that you only use for this purpose. The key is environmental signaling.
Environmental signaling.
Yes, our brains are heavily influenced by spatial memory and context. If you try to study English on the exact same comfortable sofa where you watch Netflix dramas and take Sunday naps, your brain is going to be incredibly confused.
Right. It associates the sofa with relaxation, sleep, and entertainment, and suddenly you're asking it to conjugate complex verbs. The friction is too high.
Exactly. The focus corner must be an environment that clearly signals to your brain. When we sit here, we are working. When you cross the threshold into your focus corner for those 10 to 15 minutes, your dream must be the undisputed star of the show. That requires proactive friction.
Like putting the phone away.
Exactly. That means your phone is physically located in another room, or at the very least, turned completely to airplane mode. All unnecessary browser tabs are closed. You must eliminate the environmental triggers for distraction before you even sit down to begin.
But let's be real for a second. We can set up the perfect focus corner. The desk is clean, the phone is in the kitchen drawer, the lighting is perfect. But there's still going to be days where the internal resistance is just massive. I call them the hard days. The days when you come home from a terrible day at work, your boss yelled at you, your commute was awful, you're physically and emotionally exhausted, and all you want in the world is a bag of chips and some mindless reality TV. On those days, you simply do not want to chase your dream.
And that is the exact moment where mindset must intervene, because on those days, pure discipline will almost always fail you. Discipline is a finite resource. When you are depleted, you must reconnect with your why. You have to trace the thread back to the beginning. Why did you choose this specific dream for this specific season in the first place? If your goal is to master C1 English vocabulary, why does that actually matter to your life?
It can't just be because it's good to know. It has to be
Yeah,
deeper.
exactly. Is it to get a higher paying job so you can provide a better life for your family? Is it so you can travel the world and navigate new cultures without the paralyzing fear of being misunderstood? Is it simply a private challenge to prove to yourself that you are capable of rigorous intellectual growth? When the how becomes unbearably difficult, the why is the only thing that will pull you through the 15 minutes.
Here's where it gets really interesting to me because I think a lot of highly ambitious people fall into a trap here. They have a hard day, they fail to connect with their why, and they miss a day. They don't do their anchor. And immediately the guilt sets in. They think, well, I missed Tuesday. I ruined my 30-day streak. I failed the season. I might as well give up entirely and start again next year.
That is known in psychology as all or nothing, or black and white thinking, and it is the absolute enemy of long-term progress. It is a cognitive distortion that equates a minor lapse with total failure. This is why the concept of psychological flexibility is paramount.
How does flexibility play into a strict daily routine?
Flexibility is the understanding that if you miss a day, the dream does not pack its bags and leave you. It is patient. It will be sitting right there in your focus corner waiting for you tomorrow morning. You do not need to be a flawless machine to achieve your goals. You just need to be someone who always comes back.
Someone who always comes back.
Yes. The ability to forgive yourself, let go of the guilt of yesterday, and resume the daily anchor today without engaging in severe self-flagellation is the true hallmark of someone who actually achieves their long-term ambitions.
That takes a profound amount of emotional maturity to look at your own failure and say, I messed up yesterday. I gave in to the dream thieves, but today is a completely new day. The slate is clean and I am still in the game. Let's dive into our vocabulary for this section because the words perfectly encapsulate this struggle. We're going to do a 2-for-1 special. Word number 5 is distractions, a noun, and word number 6 is multitask, a verb.
Distractions are the formal manifestation of the dream thieves we just discussed. They are external stimuli or internal thoughts that actively pull your attention away from your primary chosen focus. And multitask is a fascinating word because it describes the dangerous and largely illusory action of trying to perform multiple complex tasks simultaneously.
Wait, illusory? Are you saying multitasking isn't real? Because I definitely have friends who claim they are expert multitaskers.
Neurologically speaking, true multitasking for complex cognitive actions is a myth. The human brain cannot actually process two demanding streams of information at the exact same time.
Really? So what are they actually doing?
What those people are actually doing is rapid task switching. They are violently throwing their prefrontal cortex back and forth between the email on the spreadsheet or the English podcast and the social media feed. Every time the brain switches context, there is a cognitive penalty. It degrades performance, accuracy, and retention across all tasks involved.
That scattered, fragmented feeling in your brain when you have 20 tabs open, that's the cognitive penalty. We've all felt it. Let's look at the example sentences to see these in action. For distractions. In order to complete his master's thesis on time, he realized he had to aggressively eliminate all environmental distractions, up to and including unplugging his Wi-Fi router.
That shows the extreme lengths required to protect focus. And for multitask. The senior manager's ill-advised attempt to multitask by answering emails during the critical strategy meeting resulted in her missing several vital pieces of financial information.
Those examples illustrate the danger perfectly, which brings us to our 7th C1 word, which is the emotion we feel right before we give in to a distraction. The word is tempted. T-E-M-P-T-E-D. It's an adjective, almost always used in the phrase to feel tempted or to be tempted.
It is a word loaded with psychological friction. It describes the intense internal battle between your long-term logical goals and your short-term desire for immediate gratification. It is the emotional pull of the dream thief.
I feel tempted every time I walk past a bakery and smell fresh croissants when I'm supposed to be eating healthy. But in the context of our goals, it's about the friction between what you know you should do and what is incredibly easy to do instead.
Correct. Let's look at it in a sentence. Despite her incredibly strict monthly budget, she felt overwhelmingly tempted to book the luxury vacation after seeing her friends post photos online.
Or applying it directly to our daily anchors. After a grueling 12-hour day at the office, he was severely tempted to skip his daily 15-minute anchor, but he consciously remembered his why and sat down at his desk anyway.
I love how these words are painting a very realistic picture of the daily struggle. It isn't a smooth, easy path, and the primary weapon we have to fight that temptation is our eighth C1 word, mindset. M-I-N-D-S-E-T, a noun.
This is a word that gets thrown around a lot in self-help seminars, but what does it actually mean on a clinical level?
I often define mindset as the glasses you wear in your mind. It is your deeply established set of attitudes, assumptions, and beliefs that shape how you perceive the world. Crucially, it dictates how you react to failure and challenge. A psychologist named Carol Dweck popularized the distinction between a fixed mindset and a growth mindset.
Oh, I've heard of that.
Yes, if you have a fixed mindset, you believe your intelligence and abilities are static. If you are bad at English today, you will always be bad at it. But if you have a growth mindset, you believe your brain is malleable and abilities can be developed through consistent effort.
So, sentence one. Overcoming his paralyzing fear of public speaking required a complete foundational shift in his mindset, forcing him to view the audience as supportive allies rather than harsh critics.
And sentence two. Her remarkably resilient mindset allowed her to view the temporary business setback not as a catastrophic failure, but as a highly necessary learning experience.
If your mindset is calibrated correctly, you can withstand the temptations, you can ignore the distractions, and you can push through the hard days. But I think this raises an important concern. We've talked a lot about the internal battle and the technological distractions. But what happens when the resistance is not coming from your phone and it's not coming from your own exhaustion? What happens when the pushback is coming from the actual physical people around you?
Oh, wow. Yes, shielding your dream from doubters. This brings us into section 4 of our deep dive, and for many people, this is arguably the most emotionally taxing and painful part of the entire journey, because it is not just our devices that steal our focus. Sometimes it's our closest friends, our family members, or our longtime colleagues.
External doubters are a formidable, sometimes heartbreaking obstacle. You do the work, you figure out your season, you set your daily anchor, you are excited. So you go to dinner with a friend and you share your grand vision. You tell them you are dedicating 15 minutes a day to start a new business or write a screenplay or learn a difficult language like Mandarin. And they just look at you across the table, their face drops, and they say, "Come on, be realistic."
That's rough.
Or even worse, they give you that condescending smile and say, "Aren't you a little too old to be starting something completely new from scratch?"
That hurts. It pierces right through your enthusiasm.
Yeah.
And it is deeply confusing because these are often people we genuinely care about, people who are supposed to support us. So the natural question is, why do they do that? Do they genuinely maliciously want us to fail?
That's the million-dollar question. Are they just me?
Usually no. It is strongly believed by psychoanalysts and sociologists that these immediate negative reactions are very rarely about your actual capabilities or limits. They are almost entirely projections of their deeply held fears, their insecurities, and their unaddressed regrets.
Projections. Can you break that mechanism down? How does my goal trigger their insecurity?
When you boldly declare that you are actively taking steps to improve your life, your ambition acts as an unforgiving mirror. It reflects their own stagnation back at them. They may have had dreams they gave up on. They may have settled for a comfortable, unchallenging life. They want to stay comfortable on the proverbial sofa of life. Subconsciously, they want you there beside them on the sofa, because if you stay the same, they do not have to confront their own lack of action.
Oh, that makes so much sense.
Right. If you succeed, it proves that they could have succeeded too if they had only tried. That cognitive dissonance is painful, so they try to pull you back down to their level to alleviate their own discomfort.
That is profoundly illuminating. When someone says, "be realistic," what they're actually saying internally is, "please don't do this because it makes me feel bad about not trying myself." Understanding that completely changes how you receive the criticism. It makes it about them, not you. So how do we practically protect ourselves from that energy?
I think the best advice here relies on a visual metaphor. You have to keep your dream precious and private. Imagine your new goal is a very small, incredibly fragile flame that you're holding in the palms of your hands on a violently windy day.
If you open your hands to show everyone, the wind will just blow it right out.
Exactly. You do not wave a fragile flame around for everyone on the street to examine and critique. You cup your hands tightly around it. You protect it with your own body. You keep it hidden from the wind until you have fed it enough wood that it grows into a roaring, self-sustaining fire that no one could possibly blow out.
The metaphor of the protected flame is exactly right. You must be highly selective, almost ruthlessly selective, about who gets the privilege of seeing your flame in its early, vulnerable stages. You have to seek out mentors, supportive online communities, or fellow learners who are also holding their own flames. Guard your daily anchor fiercely from the skepticism of the sofa dwellers. Don't even tell them what you are doing until the results are undeniable.
But what if the sofa dweller is not sitting across the dinner table? What if the sofa dweller is inside our own head? We have discussed the external doubters, but the internal doubters are the ones that are truly inescapable.
The internal critic, yes. That is the voice that really keeps me up at night. It's that cynical little voice in the back of your brain that whispers, "Who are you kidding? You're not smart enough to do this." Or, "It's way too late for you to change careers." Or, "You're just going to embarrass yourself if you try to speak English in that meeting."
The internal critic is fascinating because it is rarely an original voice. It is usually the internalization of all those external doubts, societal pressures, and past failures we have absorbed over a lifetime, like a sponge. It operates on an outer locus of control, making you feel like you are at the mercy of your genetics, your age, or your circumstances.
So how do we silence a voice that lives inside our own skull? We can't put it in another room like a phone.
You cannot easily silence it, but you can outmaneuver it. To combat this internal resistance, behavioral experts suggest adopting a daily question. Rather than arguing with the inner critic, which is a trap, because arguing with it often just validates its premise and gives it more power, you bypass the argument entirely. You ask yourself a simple, binary, highly objective question every single morning. Am I for my dream or against my dream today?
Am I for my dream or against my dream today? Okay, let's unpack this. It sounds simple, but what does being for your dream actually look like on a practical Tuesday morning level?
Being for your dream is demonstrated entirely through action, not feeling. It means fulfilling your daily anchor. And here's the crucial part. It means fulfilling it even if it is only a compromised, low-energy, 5-minute version of it because you are exhausted or battling self-doubt. The action proves your allegiance. Being against your dream means actively ignoring it, letting the dream thieves hijack your evening without a fight, or silently agreeing with the internal critic that it isn't worth trying.
That shifts the perspective entirely. It removes the pressure of having to perform perfectly. It's not about being a flawless student, it's simply about being a reliable ally to yourself. Which brings us perfectly to our final two C1 vocabulary words, which deal directly with this emotional roller coaster. Word number 9 is discouraged. discouraged, an adjective.
To feel discouraged is to experience a profound loss of confidence, enthusiasm, or hope. It is that heavy, low-energy sadness you feel when facing seemingly insurmountable obstacles, or when you absorb harsh criticism from those external sofa dwellers, or your own internal critic. It is the feeling of wanting to quit.
Let's look at two examples of how to use discouraged at an advanced level. Sentence 1. Despite receiving a devastatingly harsh rejection letter from the prestigious publisher, the author refused to remain discouraged and immediately began ruthlessly revising her manuscript.
A great example of resilience, and sentence 2, highly applicable to our audience. It is incredibly easy to feel discouraged when your language progress seems to hit a long plateau, but you must remember that it's precisely when consistent daily practice is most structurally crucial to your brain.
The plateau is where most people quit, but it's where the real work happens. And the antidote to feeling discouraged, the cure for that heaviness, is our 10th and final C1 word for this deep dive. Loyalty, Loyalty, a noun. Now, I find this fascinating because we usually use this word when talking about relationships or brand loyalty or patriotism, but applying it to an abstract concept like a dream, that is beautiful.
It is a highly profound and somewhat unconventional application of the word, which is what makes it so powerful. Showing loyalty to a dream means giving a firm, constant, and unwavering support to your own future aspirations, treating your future self with the same devotion you would give a beloved friend or family member.
It beautifully unpacks the idea of not abandoning yourself when things get tough. Showing loyalty to a dream means doing your 5 honest minutes of your daily anchor, even on a terrible rainy day. It means standing up to your internal critic and saying, "I hear you. I'm exhausted. I am stressed. I am heavily doubting my own abilities today, but I am fundamentally loyal to the future I want to build, so I'm going to sit down and do this tiny action anyway."
It is the ultimate expression of self-respect. Let's look at it in a sentence. Her unshakable loyalty to her original artistic vision meant she boldly rejected several highly lucrative commercial offers that would have compromised her creative integrity.
And sentence 2. True loyalty to your long-term goals is demonstrated not on the sunny days when motivation is running high, but on the cold, dark, rainy mornings when you would much rather stay hidden in bed.
This brings us to a critical realization, a turning point in our entire discussion. We have talked about defining the goal, setting the anchor, fighting the thieves, and battling the doubters. But if we are constantly fighting, constantly battling distractions, and constantly forcing ourselves to maintain fierce loyalty through sheer willpower on the hard days, well, the dream itself can begin to mutate.
Mutate how?
It can start to feel like a heavy burden. The very thing that was supposed to bring you joy and excitement can mutate from a beautiful childhood wish into a dark, heavy, oppressive obligation.
That is so true, and I think it is the unspoken tragedy of ambition. I have definitely experienced that. You start out in January so excited to learn a new language. You buy the beautiful notebooks, the colored pens, and by July you look at that textbook sitting on your desk, and instead of excitement, you just feel this crushing, suffocating sense of guilt and dread. How do we prevent that? How do we change our psychological relationship with our goals so they don't become these heavy burdens that we end up resenting?
To prevent that resentment, we must execute a fundamental, radical paradigm shift in how we perceive the timeline of achievement. We must realize and deeply internalize that a dream is a compass, not a deadline.
A compass, not a deadline. Wow. Okay, I need you to go really deep on this. What does that actually mean psychologically for the listener who is feeling burned out right now?
Let's examine the anatomy of a deadline. When you treat a dream as a hard deadline, you are effectively attaching your entire self-worth to a specific, entirely arbitrary date on a calendar. You tell yourself, I must be completely fluent by December 31st, or I must have a fully successful, profitable business by the time I turn 30 years old.
And if you don't hit it, you feel like a failure.
Worse than that, a deadline constantly shouts at you. It induces chronic, low-grade panic. It operates entirely on the threat of failure and punishment. As December approaches, your brain releases cortisol, the stress hormone. This cortisol spike actually narrows your cognitive flexibility, making it physically harder to learn a language or be creative. If December arrives and you are not fluent, the arbitrary deadline tells you that you are fundamentally broken.
The panic literally sabotages the learning process. You are choking the life out of your own dream by putting it on a stopwatch.
Precisely. But a compass operates on an entirely different psychological and physical frequency. A compass does not shout, you must arrive at the destination by 5 p.m. A compass is silent. It merely sits quietly in the palm of your hand, and its only job is to point the way. It shows you true north. Your dream is your true north. It doesn't tell you how fast to walk. It simply gives your life a guiding direction.
So if your dream is a compass, it means that even if you are moving incredibly slowly, even if you take a weird detour, as long as you're generally heading north, you are succeeding.
Exactly. Imagine you are hiking through a dense, uncharted forest, using a compass to head north toward a mountain. Suddenly, you encounter a massive fallen tree blocking your path. You cannot go north. To get around the tree, you have to turn and walk east for an hour. If you are operating on a strict deadline mentality, walking east feels like an absolute catastrophic failure because you are walking away from the mountain. You will panic. You will curse the tree.
But with a compass mentality,
With a compass mentality, you calmly accept that the obstacle is part of the terrain. Walking east is not a failure. It is a necessary strategic maneuver to bypass the tree so you can eventually turn north again. And this introduces a concept that brings immense psychological relief, especially to highly ambitious people and language learners who are hard on themselves. Rest is not failure.
rest is not failure. That is something I think everyone listening needs to write in thick black marker on a sticky note and put on their bathroom mirror. Rest is not failure.
Think back to the hiker. When you are hiking toward a mountain peak guided by a compass, you are a biological organism. You have to stop and rest, you have to sleep, you have to eat. Taking off your heavy backpack, sitting on a rock by a stream, and doing absolutely nothing for an hour is not failing the hike. It is a necessary, non-negotiable biological requirement of surviving a long journey. You can sit down, you can rest, you can breathe, as long as your face is still turned toward your dream.
This relieves so much of that toxic, suffocating pressure. It means that if you have a genuinely chaotic week at work, maybe your kid is sick or your car breaks down, and you miss your daily anchor for 3 consecutive days, you haven't failed the deadline. You haven't ruined the season. You just sat down on the path by the stream to rest. The compass is still safely in your pocket. North is still north. You haven't lost your direction. You just stand back up when your energy returns. You brush off the dirt, and you take the next step.
For a language learner, this means accepting a profound truth. Fluency is not a final destination you cross on a random Tuesday in November and then you are done forever. It is a lifelong, evolving relationship with a language and a culture. The compass points toward deeper understanding, more nuanced communication, and greater connection. Some days you run in that direction with incredible enthusiasm. Some days you crawl through the mud of complicated grammar. Some days you sit down and rest. But the direction remains constant.
I feel physically lighter just talking about this. It takes the heavy, oppressive weight of adult ambition and turns it back into the exciting, guiding light it was when we were kids dreaming about the stadium lights. It makes the journey an adventure again, rather than a forced march.
It is the ultimate synthesis of everything we have discussed over this hour. The dream gives you the overarching compass direction. The season allows you to focus your finite energy on one specific path. The daily anchor is the physical, habitual act of putting one foot in front of the other. Protecting yourself from dream thieves and external doubters keeps you from wandering off the trail. And treating it all as a direction rather than a deadline ensures you never quit out of sheer psychological exhaustion.
That is an incredible holistic summary of the mechanics of achievement. And as promised at the very beginning of this deep dive, we have a special bonus for you. We talked about a completely unique mental trick to guarantee you never give up on your goals, and it aligns absolutely perfectly with this idea of the compass and the daily anchor.
Yes, this is a highly effective psychological strategy known as the Rent for Your Future strategy. It is designed to bridge the neurological gap between where you are today and where your compass is pointing.
Rent for your future. I love the sound of that. Let's use a hypothetical example to really bring this to life for the audience. Imagine your big dream, your true north, is to eventually live in a peaceful, quiet, detached house with a beautiful, sprawling garden, far away from the noise and pollution of the city. That's the dream. But your current reality is that you live in a noisy, cramped, stressful apartment in the center of a concrete jungle.
The gap between that current stressful reality and your peaceful dream can feel overwhelmingly, impossibly large. When the gap is too large, the brain loses hope. The Rent for Your Future strategy bridges that gap neurologically by forcing you to experience a piece of the future today.
The trick is to treat a small, highly related action as a mandatory bill that you must pay every single week or month. You are literally paying rent to your future self to secure that future reality. So if the dream is the peaceful house with a garden, your rent might be a small monthly financial transfer into a dedicated savings account that you absolutely never touch. But it doesn't have to be financial, right?
Not at all. It can be experiential. Your rent could be a mandatory, non-negotiable weekly walk in a local botanical garden where you sit quietly on a bench for 30 minutes without your phone, just absorbing the peace and the greenery.
By doing this, you are practicing small, localized pieces of the dream now before it is 100% real.
Exactly. You are proving to your nervous system that this peaceful reality is actually possible because you are already experiencing a microdose of it. You aren't just sitting in your noisy apartment waiting passively for the future to arrive. You are actively importing fragments of your future into your present life.
It makes it so tangible. And applying it to our listeners, if your dream is to speak fluent, confident C1 English in professional settings, your rent is that 15-minute daily anchor. You are literally living as a fluent speaker for those 15 minutes a day. You are adopting the identity. You are paying the rent to the future version of yourself who will speak it effortlessly all day long.
It creates a profound sense of psychological alignment and personal integrity. You are who you say you are, at least for 15 minutes a day. And that brings us to a final thought I want to leave with the listener, something to genuinely mull over and reflect on long after this audio finishes.
What is that final provocative thought?
If your dream is truly a direction and not a deadline, what is one gentle, tiny step you can take the exact moment this audio ends, just to prove to yourself that you are still walking?
Wow. Not a massive leap, just one gentle, tiny step to prove to your own brain that you are still walking on the path. Listeners, I want you to genuinely think about that. Don't just let the audio end and move on to the next distraction. Sit with that question. And while you are reflecting, please remember to hit that like button. Share this deep dive with someone who you know is battling their own internal doubters or burning themselves out trying to climb 10 mountains at once. And subscribe so you never miss our future insights.
We also want to see your public commitment. Accountability is a powerful tool. In the comment box below, we want you to write exactly this phrase, I stay committed.
Right, exactly that. I stay committed, put it out into the world, make it real. And for our advanced English learners who really want to stretch their cognitive muscles today, we have a specific idiom challenge for you. Earlier in the deep dive, when we were discussing prioritizing one main dream for the season and letting the others wait, we used the phrase, take a back seat. We want you to explain what that idiom means in your own words and write your own original C1 level example sentences using it in the comments section.
Engaging with the material actively like that, rather than just listening passively, can absolutely serve as your daily anchor for today. It is your small, gentle step.
We cannot wait to read your complex examples and see you all declaring, I stay committed. We read the comments and we are right here with you on the journey. Remember, even when the internal critic is loud, we are just two friendly voices cheering for your continuous progress, standing on the sidelines with virtual pom-poms, watching you take that very next step on the compass.
Keep your direction crystal clear and your daily steps consistent.
Thank you so much for listening to this deep dive. Stay focused, protect your focus corner, stay fiercely loyal to your dreams, and above all, keep walking your path. Goodbye.